And we are now live. So thank you, Mr. Scott Jordan. I actually haven't seen you since we went to Zigmeister, right? That one time. So
Yeah, man.
essentially, man, go ahead. Sorry.
I'm just saying it's hilarious because we did that like the exact same time the previous year too.
I know, right? It's like once every like 6 months or so, we just kind of like
Yep.
touch base. But like I said, this is going to be essentially what we did there. Was we just we kind of talked about health, fitness, whatever, blah, blah, blah. It's just kind of what we do.
hmm
Same thing, just now we're on the computer and we don't have delicious beer with us. I have coffee, which I guess is the next best thing. But that's about it, man. So if you don't mind, just kind of go into how you got involved with health and fitness. We met through personal training. You
hmm
just got accepted to PT school, so congratulations, sir. I know that's a
Thank you.
huge step
Yeah.
for you. It's something you've been working for a while now, so congratulations. It's well deserved.
Thank you.
So just take us through a little bit of how you got to where you are, then we can just kind of dive into why you went to PT or like why you chose PT. I know you've got some not like definitely not controversial, but differing than like the general view of like what PT is. But let's start a little bit with your history, and we'll just take it from there.
Yeah, so it's funny. My introduction to physical therapy and my introduction into fitness in general kind of start from the same place in the sense that it starts from the opposite end of it. So I was in high school. I was probably around, I think about topped out around 310 pounds when I was like 17 or so. And I was a taller guy. I'm currently like 6'2", but I was like 6 foot in high school. So didn't look insane, but I knew I wasn't healthy. So I just knew there was something to change there, right? I physically I hated the way I appeared, which affects me mentally, which it's just not a recipe for anything productive. So I'd always been active, always played sports, football, basketball, baseball, but my diet never paid attention to it, and I just just got heavy, and it happens. And I literally just decided one day that it would like enough was enough, and decided to get into working out. But it's not pretty. Like I
Sure.
tell people all the time, or my clients, I quit countless times when I first started working out. I remember being in the garage, lying on the floor after like a debilitating set of like terrible crunches, and just looking at like the ceiling boards going
It's not
across and
worth
just
it.
being like, yeah, just be like, this
It's
is not
not
gonna
worth it.
happen. Like, how do the guys in the Bowflex commercials look like that? Like, no way. So,
Dude,
um,
that is so funny that you bring those up. Like, because I remember I was a chubbier kid growing up, and that's basically how I got into the training world. Was my parents bought me
mhm,
like my first. It was one of those like small universal benches or whatever. So it
right.
had like the small barbell, like the sand filled plates, and it had like the bench that would like incline and stuff, and like attached was like the leg curl, leg extension stuff. And like that
Yeah,
was it. They
same
got it.
exact thing.
They
Yep.
got it for me like for Christmas in seventh grade, and like that was like my introduction to like lifting. And I just decided to like bench press and do like leg extensions and leg curls like 5 days a week. And,
That probably sounded like my high school football regime, pretty much.
yeah. So no, I mean I'm totally there with you. Like I definitely understand that experience. And it's funny that you bring up like the quitting or like the wondering if it's worth it, and like it's just being exhausted and gassed and staring at the ceiling, just being like there's no way like all this could be worth it because
Right.
this is the time of year, man. January 1st, new year, new me, New Year's resolutions.
Right.
I hate all that shit.
Oh, really?
And I just did a whole lengthy post on it on Instagram and Facebook the other day. Because I definitely like do not agree with making a lofty fitness goal your
Mhm.
New Year's resolution, especially if you're someone who hasn't stepped foot in a gym or done anything regularly active in the last 8 months, right? Because
Right.
that's just a recipe for failure. If you haven't done something for so long, and then you want to dive into 5 or 6 days a week of an hour training, lifting weights, running, cardio,
Mhm.
whatever, blah blah blah. I guarantee you, by the end of January, you'd be like, F this sucks. Like,
Well,
I don't
yeah,
want to
no,
do this.
I believe you're exactly right. And to piggyback off that, that's exactly how I want to integrate physical therapy with general weightlifting. I mean, my passion is strength athletics, but at the
Sure.
same time, like general weightlifters, general people who go to the gym, they're going to the gym 5, 6 times a week. They're as active, you could say, as like a professional athlete, not to the intensity, but to the same amount of days, and they're
Sure.
getting zero treatment. These people have no idea. They don't have anyone looking out for what position their body is in unless you have a trainer. And if you're doing something in a repetitive, incorrect position, that's when you're going to get hurt. And that's when you're going to your point, just give up on it and be like, why am I even doing this? So
Sure.
to integrate PT and how to move correctly into people who do this on a daily basis and don't have the means to, have a trainer or anyone that can watch them like an NFL player would have, that's something I really look to work with.
Absolutely. No, I love that, man. So again, you said you kind of got into it because you were a heavier kid. You kind of went through the roller coaster of, is it worth it? I'm gonna like bust my butt, blah blah blah, back and forth. So when did it? I mean, did it ever click? When did you kind of start putting things together and realize that you wanted to dive into like health and fitness as a career?
Yeah, well, it started the end of my senior year in high school is when I first started getting into fitness and whatnot. And I actually wanted to go to, I started at community college in Raritan Valley, and I wanted to go as an exercise science major. And my mom literally, she was like, this is a phase. That's that's not going to happen. Like, it's like, go for communications, get a job, whatever, parent advice.
Yeah.
And so I
Get a
fought on
job.
it. Yeah, get communication, get something that works.
Get out of my house and get a job.
I'm going to hate myself, but fine. So, yeah, so I actually did try communications for a full year at RV. And, while I love communicating, I love conversing with clients, patients, anybody.
Not really exactly the same thing.
Yeah, it's not. You're communicating. You're not hands-on helping someone. Of course, you can help through communication, right? But it wasn't it for me. But I did the full year of communications, and I was just like, it really is not for me. And I decided that, all right, like I need, this is what I want to do. I'm going to get an exercise science degree, and I'll be like a PT and like a PT assistant as well. And I'm like, I'll do both jobs, and I'll run around, and it'll be fine. And then I got older and realized that would be awful. And I had one professor at RV, Dr. Gorky Masachi. I believe he's currently a chiropractor. Yeah, isn't it? And but we had a talk because I had actually failed my first anatomy class ever, and I retook it with him. And we had a talk after class one day when I had mentioned I was starting to think about PT. So this would be like sophomore year. Mm-hmm. And I told him about the PT aid and the training, and he's like, that's great. But, PT aid is a 2-year degree, and physical therapy is 1 more year. And you could be your own boss, and you can do a lot more for a lot more people. And the way he put it to me, I was just like, well, there it is right there. How can you say no,
Yeah, dude. I mean, I got a very similar kind of talk when I was, going through personal training, and I was, a trainer, and then I did a little training managing and stuff. And I knew that was not going to be like a long-term career for me. So that's when I started like exploring physical education, like teaching as a career. So my initial goal was just take the education classes, like knock them out, start teaching, and then maybe think about like an advanced degree, later on. So when I started like talking to schools, I ended up, speaking with Montclair. That's where I ended up going. They were just like, you could stay for 1 more year and you get a master's, and it like bumps you to the top of like, and then they give you the whole spiel. It puts you at the top of all the resumes, and it's a pay increase and blah blah blah. I was just like, okay.
Yeah, it's weird. And I even decided on training, I decided kind of early because it was my passion. I was into it. And my mother, who has, worked her butt off her whole life and has been at a desk job for most of it, just always told me not to work at a cubicle. And, I had a really terrible knee injury, actually. I should have prefaced in high school that I had a dislocation of my patella and a simultaneous avulsion fracture of my tibia. So
that sounds like fun.
Yeah, it sounds painful, right? But it would have been worse, like structurally, if it was a tear. So it ended up being mostly a bone break. So I was able to come back in about 8 or 9 months.
Okay.
But that's when I actually ended up putting on all that weight, and it
Mm.
kind of spiraled into everything. And I saw like, I literally couldn't go to school for about 2 or 3 months because I just couldn't walk, and it was bad. But I was at the PT almost every day, and I just saw he was walking around with everyone. He's happy, not behind a desk, and he just, I don't know, it just seemed like a fun job. Like I would enjoy doing that. But I didn't take seriously what it entailed until like my junior year at Rowan, and I finally started looking at it, and I'm like, wow, okay, like I gotta get to work.
Yeah, dude. So when we were as a youngster, those couple months ago, you started going into like you have a very specific view of like how you want to enact your PT and blah blah blah, and it's not just like fixing people and like all right, you're on the way. Like you had like a very specific like intent and motive behind it. Do you mind like just explaining that a little bit?
Yeah, so I think physical therapists need to be masters of movement, right? It's the little tiny things. I remember watching this old show, and you probably know it as well, called Sports Science that was on ESPN, and it would break down every single inch of like a pitch or something, and that's what I love to do with PT, and what I want to do is translate it to strength athletics if I ever can. So, as we talked about that day, when I first realized, like, not that I was done with training, I'll never be done with personal training. I love it. But when I realized it was time to really switch to PT, I was training the Pilates instructor at our gym.
Okay.
And yes, and she is a very bright woman. She has her degree in kinesiology. She's very just aware of her body.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, Sarah's like terrified, rightfully so, to put her spine in a compromised position at the bottom of a squat.
Okay.
So we worked for a very long time on just getting her lower and lower and more comfortable at each position. And there was one day where we finally got her like parallel, just below parallel. She felt so confident and so good. 45 minutes of the training session had gone by, and I didn't even realize. I was so excited to sit there and just work on that one motion and perfect it
Mm-hmm.
to make sure going forward that there would be a less chance of injury or and a higher chance of performance. That I was like, wow, like this is what I want to do right here. This was 10 times more fun to me than running around, doing different things for an hour.
Yeah, man. That was something I always used to tell like my clients I was just like, look, I'm not a clown. This is not the circus. I'm not here to entertain you. Like, we're not going to be doing 1,000 different things at 100 miles an hour. Like, we're going to focus on like a couple of basic movements, and we're going to continue to do them until you do them well. And then when you do them well, then I'm just going to make them harder by making them heavier.
Right, exactly.
That's essentially it. So it's just like, look, if that's not what you're into, I can find someone else. Like that's
right.
But that's what I'm into, and that's to me, that is what personal training should actually be. It shouldn't be just running someone around like a chicken with their head cut off just to make them tired. Anyone can do that. It's about
exactly.
Go ahead.
No, just to say it's exactly that. And like as you were too, like when I write my programs for someone, I will sit there and think I don't even know how long it'll take because you consider every element. Like how are they coming to you? What position were they in all day at work? Do they stand all day? Are they sitting? What is their pre-existing? There's so much to think about rather than just, like you said, tiring someone out. And I think, I might go a little overboard thinking about all those things all the time, but again, I think it's where like I have my interest, but.
And that's also why you're ending up where you now are. Like you're not going to be a personal trainer for the rest of your life. You're moving forward because you have that sort of analytical and in-depth thought process.
I do, but you know what? I wouldn't have it without all the injuries I've had myself too. Like I've been that idiot in the gym, 1,000 times before when I was younger. And again, when I first met you, Glenn, you were the first person to teach me how to correctly deadlift, if you remember that.
I do. It was fun. I enjoyed that. It's good times.
Yeah, like we started RDL, we started trap bar. You had me on a plan, to get it going. It wasn't just thrown in and make you tired. We sat a couple weeks, we worked on that,
Yeah, I do. That was a while ago, but yeah, I do remember starting, with like the RDL, then starting with the trap bar. Because look, whether you're a professional or not, I'm going to treat you the exact same way I treat, like my 50-year-old woman client or like my 15-year-old soccer player client or whatever. Like, you have to figure out some sort of baseline. All right.
Yeah.
And because you're a fitness professional, you're young, you're healthy, you're in shape, you're probably going to progress through that fairly quickly compared to a 60-year-old woman who's never touched a weight in her life.
Right.
So yeah, but that's generally my philosophy. Like I do the same thing with myself. Like I unfortunately, when I was taught, I was not taught with that sort of progression. I was just like, it was like you said in high school. All right, there's a barbell with a bunch of weight on it. Pick it up a couple times. I was just like, okay. And to this day, like that's where I will say that I probably didn't put the time and effort in when I was young enough or early enough to realize the mistakes I was making. But that's what started like the chain of injuries that I currently dealt with, with the herniated disc and everything. Like obviously that did not happen in one specific instance. That happened over time, but that's essentially where it started. It was just like I was taught the age old, don't squat with your knees past your toes. Like here's a barbell on the floor, go pick it up. That's a deadlift. We would do like power cleans for time for whatever reason. I was 15 years old. No one had ever taught me. It was just like you just pick the bar up and then you like catch it. Like that was my training when it came to power cleaning. So yeah, like no shit.
You know what? What that does though, Len, is it builds, at least you hope that it builds some sort of like body conscience, right? Because now myself going on 27 now, looking at how I lifted when I was 18, are you kidding me? Like everything was just, I because even nutrition wise, I was really heavy, right? So I came into it. I'm like, well, I don't need carbs, right? I'm already fat, so this is fine. And I had no energy. I swear, I did so many bicep curls when I started. I got tendonitis within like 3 weeks. It wasn't even funny. And
dude, it's funny that you say that. My arms are a very, very tricky like area for me. Like I need to be so like delicate and precise with how I train arms that like I almost switch up like my training. I wouldn't say like month to month, but I'm always like reevaluating. Right. Like even when we were training together at Health Quest, I was pretty deep into like pure strength. Like I never did anything over like 6 reps. Like that was hypertrophy for me. But yeah, I mean, like I would have to do like when I was doing like that, I would do arms like specifically like bicep curls, tricep extensions, once a week because I couldn't do any more. Because if I'm going like that heavy, like it was too much on tendons, the joints, all that stuff. As I have progressed through now, like I tried doing arms like 3 days a week. I kind of settled somewhere in, it's like 2, but it's technically 4, if that makes any sense. So I don't have like an arm day. But
you throw it in.
If I'm doing like pull type exercises, I'll do like a bicep curl, like one round, like 3 sets of either like 12 or 15 now. Like I don't do any like heavy, it's all lighter for reps. But I'll do like 1 or like 3 sets of bicep curls like at the end. Then if I'm doing any sort of like push like the next day, then I'll throw like tricep extensions in at the end. Like 3 sets of 15. Then I usually take like Wednesday, Thursday off for arms specifically. I'm still, training other things. But then again, then I'll do like biceps again on Friday and then triceps again on Saturday. So like it's 4 days, but it's really only like 2.
It's funny. Like 2 sessions, right?
Yeah.
You can do 2 sessions across 4 days. No, it's funny. I do the same thing because I've been on like a 4-day split now, but it all goes back to what your goal is, right? Like, so with my focus being strongman, I severely underestimated the amount of. Not anymore. Now we're getting back to it. This AC joint's messed up. But anyway, biceps. Holy cow! Like I didn't know what to do, Len. I was getting little pulls in my bicep all the time because it's just. At first, let's chalk it up. If that's happening, more than likely it was technique, right? Number 1, when I'm still learning. But number 2, just the amount of pulling in different ways, even like over the amount of stability needed in that bicep and an overhead press, like there's a lot So I actually stopped training biceps for a long time because I'm just like, my number one fear is to tear a bicep, which it's probably going to happen one day. Hopefully not. But,
that's the spirit.
but it's one of my number one fears because I just like, if and when it happens, I'm just going to be like, I'm not going to do it. But anyway, it's.
I just find that that is oddly specific. Like why your bicep?
I don't know why. I don't. Maybe because it's just so close, or I've almost done it before. I don't know. But hell, I've done everything else, right? So, but basically, I stopped training him for a while because I was just like, I don't want to overload. Like I don't want to hurt myself. Like why?
Sure.
Why do I care about aesthetics if my main goal is strongman? So why does it matter? But then I started getting under the impression of like, all right, Scott, but let's think about this. Don't we actually need those biceps to be a little more resilient than anything else? And yes, training them for like specific events is smart, but then I'm like, what if we worked eccentrically? What if we did other things? So it's funny that you bring up the arm topic because it can seem very like, I don't want to say, I guess the wrong word for it would be juvenile or whatever, but because, But
I understand when you do say juvenile, like I understand what you mean. Like it's very like, look, at least between the two of us, we've both been high school boys. We understand. I know, right? Like we understand that, like, we were both there. Like you want a bench press and you want a bicep curl. Like that's pretty much all you want to do.
That's one of my biggest. Sorry to cut you off, Lynn. My biggest things I love talking about now is the high school bench press theory.
Yeah.
So
mentality.
It's the high school bench press mentality because like I literally talk to some of my clients and I'm just like all right, I want to work my chest. We got a bench press. I'm like, all right, do you want to, it's like we bench. If you ask me, the bench press is here. It's a compound lift. A bench press is here to move a heavy weight. To work your chest is something different. If you want to work your chest specifically, I can give you something better. I can give you something that's less damaging on the shoulder that will target your chest a little bit more because we're using a lot of different things if you're benching correctly because it's different, and heavy, but there's a lot more that goes into it than just your chest. So, but it's like we all think we need to bench, deadlift, squat, like the big three,
Yeah.
And while
I'd love to use those as a baseline to kind of build off of. Like not everyone needs to do those three things.
No.
Like maybe you do have a shoulder issue and you can't bench press. Well, then there's push-ups. Then we can try dumbbells. Dumbbells give you a little bit more freedom to kind of move around a little bit.
Yeah.
There's cables. There's dips. I love dips, especially as like a chest exercise. And I think it's very overlooked as a chest exercise. I think people generally think of them as like arms and shoulders. But it's if you take the dip. So for anyone who maybe doesn't know what I'm talking about with like the horn bars, it's attached, or maybe you have like the assisted dip where you got the knee pad and you're upright, kind of leaning forward, and then lowering yourself into that dip position. I'm not talking about dips where your arms are behind you on like a bench and your feet are out in front of you. That's like more tricep. But if you take that position where you're leaning forward, right, and that's the big part, that lean forward instead of being upright. When we're leaning forward into that dip, we're pushing our hips back and we're lowering ourselves in. If you take yourself in that position and then, oops, I just hit my microphone, and then invert you. So if you were upside down, it's the same exact position as a decline bench. And using that now with the dip, because there's no bar in your way, you actually get a better range of motion. With a decline bench, your range of motion is hindered completely, almost cut in half, because your stomach and like chest are sticking up in the air, and the bar gets in the way. So I am like a very big proponent of people getting better at doing the dip for chest strength, muscle building, all that kind of stuff.
I think you said it perfectly right at the end there by saying getting better at it too, because how many people do you know will just jump in and we're not excluded from this. When we first didn't know, it's like, and we'll do a dip and we'll go into this awful shrug that I just, and for like, but that's where it becomes our job to continue to give this knowledge out, because like, I have clients who are engineers, right? And I tell them, and I'm just like, look, like if I stepped into your job for a day, I would be on the phone with my mom in the broom closet within 5 minutes because I have no idea what I'm doing, right? How can I expect them to come into the gym and know how to do all this stuff perfect? So it's not someone's responsibility to know how to do it perfect, but it is everyone's responsibility to learn to make sure we don't hurt ourselves. But that's where you and I and anyone in the fitness industry can come in because for me, I love the dip. My AC joint would hate that dip right now. But I know that because of what you and I have been able to learn throughout schooling and what we've put our focus on. But I don't expect the general person to know that and to continue to push that knowledge. I think is something that we're both trying to do.
Yeah, man. Um, yeah, I mean, it's like a bittersweet kind of thing, at least going through. And I know you're similar with the injuries and that kind of experience. To me, like I'm almost happy I like had to deal with like the injuries that I did
Mm-hmm.
because now I know better. And hey, maybe if I didn't have those, maybe I wouldn't be in the position that I'm in today. Maybe I would have pushed through with, training or whatever. I might be in a very different position, but I wouldn't
Yeah.
have like the understanding and the respect for training and what it actually is and is supposed to do. Now, obviously, everyone has their own different goals, whether it is getting as big and strong as possible, whether it's getting as shredded as possible. Maybe you just want to feel a little bit better and move a little bit better. To me, I now have this not necessarily deeper, but a different understanding of where my focus now is trying to move as well and like have as quality movement as possible. And the weight comes secondary. So
Right.
I don't like I'm right now like I the heaviest I like squat is like 65 pounds, and I don't even like back squat. I use it more as like almost a mobility type exercise
I was just gonna say, yeah.
where I'm focusing on like controlling the weight down, hitting like as deep into depth with good form as I possibly can, holding. So I'm pausing at the bottom for a second and then feeling the contraction and the smooth movement on the way up. And to me, you do 8 to 12 of those and you're still pretty damn tired if you're really just focusing on the movement and controlling the weight as opposed to loading up 400 pounds, letting it crush you to the bottom and then just trying to lift it back up to the top.
Make your way,
I
yeah.
mean, obviously, two very different things, but to me, that's where I'm at in this moment. And I'm not gonna lie, I probably feel as good, if not better, than I've ever felt in quite a long time.
Yeah, and I remember you with the back pain, with anything. I mean, anything that anyone's going to feel if you continue to lift heavy for a long time. No one's going to be perfect at it. But I, it's funny you mentioned fix the squat and everything because I've been trying to fix my own. Right, I think I've had 135 on the bar for the past at least 3 weeks. I'm like, do I need high bar? Do I need low bar? I've been having some pain in the front of my hips. I had Morgan help me out actually. Just it's it's been a little bit of a mystery to me, right? I'm ready to get. I've been weightlifting again since August, I guess, whenever we were allowed to go back into the gym.
Sure.
And I'm like, all right, I want to start maybe in. I feel like I've built a decent base. So I'm like, let me introduce a belt. And then my squat just started feeling just awful. And I'm like, no, there's no way I'm going to pile on this heavy weight now and just whatever motion that is restricted right now, just make it a lot more prominent. Like
Mm-hmm.
so I've been just back with 135, just hanging out. I'm experimenting with low bar, seeing if that's going to help me out. And I look at it as I'll earn my squat when it
Mm-hmm.
gets there, and I'll earn the right to put that heavy weight on. But as of now, I don't believe it warrants that.
Yeah, and that's 100% where I'm at. Is maybe one day I'll get to squatting 400 again. It's not going to be now, and it's probably not going to be for a while. And I'm perfectly okay with that. I don't even back squat. The squats that I do,
You were front squatting 400, by the way.
I,
So
so I'm front squatting and I'll do like Zercher squats. And to me, it's just to. By the way, if anyone doesn't know what a Zercher squat is, when you hold the bar like in your elbow. So the weight's in front of you, and all that does, and why I did that is because the bar position where you put it, it changes your center of gravity. So you're going to have to adjust your squat accordingly. When you have the bar more in front, front squat where it's up on your shoulders, Zercher squat where it's hanging in your elbows. it forces you to take a more upright squat position. So to me, again, with the low back injuries, that's just the position I want to be in. I want to be in a more upright position. I want to make sure that the stress is going to be more on my quads and less in the hips. So that's where I'm at. And, like I said, 65 pounds is nothing compared to where, we have been. But for now, doing 3 sets of 8, 3 sets of 12, whatever, pause squatting, that's where I need to be. And that's where I'm pretty comfortable being. And what I do for strength for legs is not trying to brag, we'll call it a humble brag, but I've gotten pretty humble brag. I've gotten pretty good at pistol squatting, which is something I never thought I would be able to do.
And see, that's something right now where, like, you asked me to pistol squat, I could do my best, but I know, like, I would go into a terrible, like, lumbar position. You know what I mean? Like, that's something that is so impressive to me that if you can own that, man, like, those hips are living. Like, you're doing good.
Yeah, and so to me, now I've also identified my area of weakness is my ankle mobility. So I do have to do them in squat shoes, otherwise my form is atrocious. So that's where I'm at, and I can comfortably knock out like 4 on each leg. That's, again, keeping my balance. I'm pretty okay with that there. My next goal is to maybe try to get it up to 5 or 6, in a set. And then to, again, just work on that ankle mobility, that dorsiflexion, where I can do them barefoot as opposed to in squat shoes. Because ideally, I want to be able to do everything I can barefoot, and there's a reason behind that. And screw it, I'll go into it. I'm a big proponent of doing as many things barefoot as possible because I believe that nowadays our feet are so detrained. Like, that's why there's so many people with flat arches and foot pain and weak ankles, and it stems. Your feet are the first thing that come in contact with the ground, and everything stems from there. Your feet, anatomically speaking, they're different than your hands, but they have a fairly similar structure. They have a lot of the same nerve connections and stuff, and we consistently stifle them with socks and shoes and boots, and they've become so detrained and used to being held up with these arches and orthopedics and blah blah blah. Like, no wonder people have so many like foot and ankle issues because it's like it's almost like if you were to walk around in a knee brace all the time for no reason whatsoever.
It's forcing you into a position, it's remarkable what the foot can do. Like the plantar fascia itself, I've always likened it to the suspension system in a Jeep going over some hills, right? Like, you're constantly adjusting to terrain. Like, that is phenomenal, and we have detrained that 100% by wearing shoes.
Absolutely.
I was actually.
Go ahead. No, finish.
I'm saying I look forward to learning more about that itself, like foot positioning and stuff. I was a little more keen on it last year, but since I swear, I've become groggy since doing all these other classes for school, just to get in. Like, my physics is up here right now, but my exercise science brain is lacking.
Yeah, I mean, look, trust me, you're gonna get it all. You're gonna learn it all, and you're gonna be
I'm so excited,
way smarter than me when you're done. Yeah, dude. Like I said, that's, to me, that's a big thing that I've been working on. Is I'm barefoot as often as possible, outside, indoors, wherever I am. Blah blah blah. I remember back when I was commuting to work. We've been virtual now. I'm on winter break. I always used to listen to the Michael K show coming home, because I would get out at 3, be a nice an hour ride home, and they'd just pop that on. And Don LaGreca, I don't know if you're familiar with the show or the people or whatever, but Don LaGreca, he's one of the hosts. I forget how this came up, because it has nothing to do with sports, but he was talking about how he literally puts on shoes in the morning to go out to work and doesn't take them off until he's ready to go to bed. So he does his whole work day, comes home and lays around the house and does things around the house with shoes and socks on. And I was just his feet must be a mess.
Oh my God, yeah, like Shaquille O'Neal's feet.
That's because let's ballpark it and say you're putting your shoes on at 9 a.m. Let's be generous, maybe. I mean, by the end of the day, if you're going to bed at like 9, 10, 11 o'clock, like that's 12 plus hours of just being contained in a
Yeah.
soft sock and a foamy shoe. Like, he must
Yeah.
have like
Well,
zero, like, it's mind boggling to me. Because like the first thing I
no,
want
it
to do is
is.
take shoes off whenever I can.
And now to piggyback on that, same exact thing as someone sitting at a desk as you and I are right now for 8 hours a day. That's like like when I said it previously, like I literally consider what position my clients are in all day when they come to me. Like the people just come here in these terrible positions because they've been sitting like this all day, and like you've been working, you've been productive. But I would never say that's bad. But at the same time, like just like the things we do to ourselves and don't realize that put us in these bad positions, and then we go work out or do whatever we do to be active on top of it, and we exacerbate those issues, and then we end up at PT with shots with who knows. But it's the lack of like attention to what we're actually doing to ourselves, like
Yeah.
staying in those fixed positions for a long time is something that I definitely think about constantly.
Yeah, man. And that's actually why, like, I can totally tell the difference, especially like, when I'm in school and when I'm virtual. Like, obviously, when I'm in school, I'm on my feet a hell of a lot more. Like, I'm
Oh
moving
yeah.
around a lot, and I feel the difference. Like, I feel better. Like, 100% feel better. Obviously, when I'm home, I probably log a little bit more couch time than I'm comfortable with. But I do. Like, I feel the difference, which is why actually when I am home, like, I actually try to, work out or train like twice a day. And I'm not talking about like two huge, like exhausting sessions. Like, I'll do my strength
Right.
training and all that kind of stuff. I still try to do that in the morning. But then, after work's done and stuff, I'll either try to go for like, a walk, maybe like a 2 mile walk or something like that,
Yep.
or just some sort of like a big thing I've been doing, especially now that it's like cold and if it snows or whatever, is I'll hop in the garage and I'll pick like two movements. So whether that be like marchers and jumping jacks, or I've got a sandbag. So I'll do core where like I have like the sandbag and like a front rack, and I'll do marchers, and I'll
Gotcha.
just do maybe I'll just do like body weight squats or lunges or something. So I'll pick two different things and I'll put a 20-minute timer on, and I'll just do one for a minute. So like from 20 to 19 minutes, I'll do the marchers, and then I'll rest for a
Gotcha.
minute. And then from 18 to 17, I'll do like the squats or whatever, and then I'll rest for a minute. And I'll just do that until the 20 minutes is up. And look, it's not exhausting. I'm not like dying at the end. People, I think that like, oh, your workout's not worth it unless you're
If
like
it's not worth
gassed
it
on
or
the
not,
floor
yeah.
and you're crying and bleeding and like throwing up. Like, no, it's just a little bit of movement that I sweat a little bit, breathing a little hard, but that's it. And dude, like the more I do it, the more I move. Like the more I do that barefoot, even if
Yep.
I'll now that it's winter in New Jersey, I'll wear socks in the garage. But you
It's all
know,
right. I'll forgive you.
I appreciate that. But that's about it, man. And it's I'm a big believer of the more that you move, the better off you are.
Yeah.
And we've kind of gotten to this point where like everything anyone wants to do, it's like, all right, like I worked, I want to like relax, or I did this, I want to relax, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with relaxing, but like it's also not the best thing for you. Like, I'm not a big proponent of like bed rest unless you like need it.
Right.
Like, I think moving and like being active and exercising, like that's like some of the best medicine for you.
Yeah, and in medicine, in however many aspects you want to talk about it, right? Like it's I don't think it's exactly breaking news that it's been kind of a hard year for everyone here, but I'll put it to you like this: like I have one client he literally works like 80 hours a week,
It's a lot.
and yeah, it is, but he has struggled with some weight loss, and I would, or with being a heavier person and struggling to lose some weight. And I will never in my life call this man lazy because he works so hard. He works all day long. But if he
Sure.
changed that from 80 to 0, from 75 to 5, with 5 of those hours being in the gym,
Hmm.
like just being in that different position from in that chair for 1 hour a day, So so that's 5 hours a week we're saving times 12 months. That's 60 hours a year. You're not in that position. Like that one change right there is
Oh,
making a
wow.
difference. And in that hour, if you're working on yourself and getting better and fixing those positions, like hallelujah, like like it really, I wish we could I think it's our jobs to find a way to make this stuff seem attainable. Like it's awesome that we can know what to do. We've gone to school, we can figure out what the problem is, but making it seem more attainable to anyone, I think is really something we need to keep pushing.
Yeah, dude, and that's basically like the reason why I started this whole YouTube channel was to just
Yeah.
try and like centralize as much health and fitness information in one location as possible.
Yeah.
And I've done that. Like that's why like I love like with Coach's Corner here. Like I talk to different like health and fitness professionals. You know, you were the first person I've talked to who's going to PT school, but I've talked to personal trainers. I've talked to doctors, chiropractors. And everyone's got like a little bit of a different take on health, which I think is awesome because at the
Yeah,
end of the
there's
day,
no, go ahead.
go,
You're going to say what I'm going to say. There's no right answer.
exactly, yeah,
You
exactly. At
know,
the end of the day, there is no right answer. Like people generally have the same principle of you need to move more and you need to like eat the right stuff. Like okay,
right.
like I think everyone on earth knows that. But not everyone knows how to like take those first steps. Like, all right, like I know I need to move more and I know I need to eat better, but I really don't know like where to begin. Like, what should I
Well,
do in the gym? I don't
yeah,
have
yeah.
access to a gym. What can I do at home? Like, and that's
I,
kind
I,
of
I
go.
totally agree. Like, sorry, because this is the other day at work, man, I was training someone and I saw these it's high school kids season at the gym. And there's like all these kids working out. And I'm just like, at what age do we realize we need to start taking care of ourselves like that? Like, when was that pushed? When was that told to us? Because
Yeah, I
I,
I don't know. From my personal experience, I think I forget if we talked about this before we started recording or after, but anyway, I'll repeat it anyway. Um, I think it was when we were recording, but we both said we grew up we were a little chubbier as a kid. I
Mhm.
think I was a little chubbier when I was younger, and that's when my parents got me like my first weight bench. So to me, right around like sixth, seventh grade was when I made the decision to do something about it in
Mhm.
that sense. But then I was also like I was always an athlete through high school, middle school, high
Right.
school, college, whatever. So like being active and like working out and like it was always a part of my
It was a
life.
part of your life, yeah.
So when I stopped being an athlete, so kind of like towards my tail end of college, and then after is when I had to start making the decisions, like because it wasn't just a part of my day. It was just like, all right, I have to like go to the weight room for baseball or football or whatever.
Right.
It's like, oh, like I don't have any reason to actually go to the gym besides like for my own health. So
Yep.
like that was a weird transition for me because it wasn't something that like it wasn't a necessity anymore. It was just something that like I had to decide to do, and
Hmm.
I wasn't like a very smooth transition for me. Like I towards the end of college and a couple of years after, like I did put on weight, and um, it was weird because like I wasn't as committed to it, and I like didn't almost like I didn't have like a reason to or whatever. Um, and it was kind of an odd sort of realization, and I think the more that I kind of like went through it or whatever, and then like when I started training at Health Quest or whatever, and started doing like this. I started getting into the strength, so like that made me more like committed to it
It gives
because
you
like I was just like
something to
yeah, like
train
I had like
for.
a goal and a drive to do something, and then the injuries started
Right.
popping up, and now honestly for me, so I'm 31, right? Yeah, I'm 31 now. Now to me, like my goal is to just like I can tell like if I don't do something like physically active, training, lifting, walking, something,
Right.
like my body just feels bad,
Yeah.
and not like I'm
No.
like hurting or injured or anything, but I just like there's a difference.
Well, you've
Um,
had, I mean, think about it. Like, you've had yourself on such a norm for so long that doing nothing is actually out of your norm. So,
yeah,
to me, like, that makes sense that your body's going to tell you, like, hey, like, something's not the right, something's not the same here. Like,
yeah, yeah, dude. No, that's it. So I don't know. For me, I don't know if there was like a defining moment of when I like made that decision of like, oh yeah, I need to do this like for health. Like I think I always like knew it, but it was just me grappling with the actually putting it into like execution as opposed to just like knowing that I should.
But goals change as we grow also because being where I was and being really overweight, all I cared about was aesthetics at first. Like I literally attempted bodybuilding at first.
Sure.
Like that's where I wanted to go, and because I'm like it was the polar opposite of what I was doing, right? And then I found powerlifting, and then after powerlifting, it kind of led to strongman, and that just happened to be like my little circuit, but it's whatever you want to do. And I'm starting to think different now, like with going to school and everything, because I am absolutely terrified of going to PT school and being made fun of for not being able to reach around my back or something like that. Like I don't want to be made an example of, right?
Yeah.
So for the past year or so, I've really been working on the mobility because I'm just like, I need this to be okay. But then I also still, like this is where it's a little to talk about, we talked about earlier, like controversial with PT for me is because like I also have goals of like I want a 300-pound overhead press at some point in my life. I really want that. I know that's not exactly fantastic for my spine, and that's where the difference in what I want to do, like goals and then like professionally, kind of clash. But at the same time, I argue that you need like a to be able to do something like that. I believe you need to have some type of knowledge of what you're doing to yourself to keep yourself in that correct position. Like you can easily with any weight overhead just tumble on backwards. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it all depends on what your goals are as well, and it's whether some are kind of contradictory to each other, like they're mine or whatever they are. It's going to change everything about how you approach it.
Yeah, no, I agree. And to be honest, I don't think that there's anything inherently wrong with, overhead pressing 300 pounds. I think it's just how you go about it. And that's where, again, that's a big, big factor where my thinking has changed. Because I totally would love to squat 400 pounds again. However, I'm not going to rush it. Like, it's probably like I know it's not going to happen this week. I know it's not going to happen next week, and I know it's not going to happen within probably the next like 5 years. But hey, maybe 10 years down the road, like it's something that I do. Like it's just I've gotten to this point where everything I'm doing now, like I said, I'm not. I was actually never a big like 1 rep max guy. Like my heaviest lifts were sets of 3. And then when I was going through that strength thing, it was sets of 3 or sets of 6 was like my, again, high rep range. Now I'm more in the 8 to 12, maybe even like 15 for most things. So look, like I said, as of right now, I'm front squatting 65 pounds. By no means is that anywhere near 400 pounds, but in my head, I'm thinking,
if you have a beautiful front squat.
Exactly. So that's what I'm thinking is like, hey, if I continue this process, and like I said, I'm in no rush. There's no reason in my head why 10, 15 years down the road, maybe I am front squatting 400 pounds for sets of 8, like the same way I'm doing 65 pounds. Like I realize that's a huge jump, but to me, like it's not something I'm writing off, but it's not also my goal to do like immediately. It's just like down the road, we'll see what happens. Like I'm just working towards getting stronger, but also my main focus is making sure that I'm moving correctly.
Yeah, and also maintaining longevity, right? I mean, we want to be doing this for the next 10 plus years. Like, of course, I have that number in my head. Will I ever hit it? Well, who knows? Lightning might strike. But like, if I do, that'll be awesome. But if I don't, like, I'm not.
It's not the end of the world.
Right, exactly. And it's just, but it is. It's funny how the goals change, and the more you've just the longer you've been doing it too, and just, but. That's the other thing is that I even wrote a couple essays about this. Is just that longevity is like something that strength athletics can take away from us. And so to be able to teach that, whether it's through like training or physical therapy, to give that longevity back or allow someone to have it because they've been doing it in a correct position for a long time. Like that's something I think that we both try to push on a lot of people.
Sure. Yeah, man. Dude, we've been doing this for about an hour now. Kind of flies by, right? Yeah. So, Is there? I mean, I don't want to keep you here all day. So, is there anything else, PT wise or philosophy wise? Usually, I like to leave off if there's anything like pertinent that you want to talk about, or a little gem of wisdom you want to leave us with, or
Yeah, I
no
mean,
pressure.
yeah, right. No, I mean, the biggest thing I can say is that just learn as much as you can about this stuff, whether it's weightlifting related, it's physical therapy related, it's personal training related. Learn about what it takes. Learn like as far as to become PT or to become a personal trainer, because I certainly didn't look it up at first, and it took me a long time. I've been finishing prerequisite classes for physical therapy while working as a trainer and a PTA for the past 3 years. Because I didn't do my research well enough initially. So if you want to get better at this stuff, just what I just tell everyone, just invest in yourself. Like no matter what it is, that's what you have to rely on. So invest in yourself, becoming that professional for your own self, or if you do want to get into this industry, but take this stuff semi seriously to be healthy and to be able to progress as you want.
I dig it. Yeah, there's absolutely no reason why anyone shouldn't be able to like do a little research, even if like you don't want to be like a PT or a personal trainer,
Whatever,
or
yeah.
like even if you're
You
just
know what
like,
you're doing to yourself.
yeah,
That's my biggest thing. You know what you're doing to yourself.
every every successful investor or entrepreneur or pretty much anyone that you ask always says like the best asset to invest in is yourself. And a
Hmm.
lot of them, are in pretty decent shape because they realize like their health is their most
Yeah.
important asset.
What's the point of working
Um,
if you can't be here to do it?
exactly.
Like,
So that's why like it almost behoove people. I don't know, whatever. You know the expression I'm
okay.
trying to say.
Yep.
um, you know, obviously, like we are both big into health and fitness and blah blah blah. But it's worth your while if you're someone who doesn't really feel comfortable in the gym or doesn't really know what you're doing, or but it's something that you want to do. Like learn, ask questions, do a little research. Like you can look things up on the internet or on Google, or you know
Hmm.
I'm gonna shamelessly plug myself. Like I have Instagram, Facebook, the YouTube channel. Like I'm always open to asking or answering any sort of questions. Like that's my whole purpose for doing this, the Instagram, whatever, was to just get information out to people. So it's there, and I'm not just talking
Yeah.
about myself. There are other people out there as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, ask the questions. Like figure out how to
Seriously.
do things right because the more you learn about training, about working out, about just taking care of yourself in general, like it's going to benefit you in the long run. And
It is,
that's the whole point.
it is, and it helps you be honest with yourself. And Miles even told me the one time I'll never forget. He's like, "Don't be afraid to say I don't know." Like whether you're in our position, who's someone who is interested in the industry, or someone who's on the outside trying just wants to go to the gym and work out. Don't be afraid to say I don't know. There's people there to answer those questions. I ask all the time. I mean, I ask you. I send Morgan pictures of my squat. I'll ask you about any type of pull I need. Like, man, ask questions, and if you want to do it, just learning always helps.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate you taking the time on a New Year's Day. So,
Absolutely.
take care of yourself. Best of luck with school. Are you starting in September or?
June, actually, it's pretty
Hey,
quick. Yeah,
all right.
yeah. June. Yeah, I still have to make a decision. I have 3 places right now. I have to make a decision,
Look
but
at you, desired man.
yeah, right. No, but yeah, I'm really grateful to even have a decision. I never thought that would even be possible. So yeah, just making that decision in the next 20 days, not freaking out about it, and taking it one day, man.
That's awesome. Well, congratulations, and best of luck. And let's definitely grab a beer when it starts to get a little warmer
Yeah,
before you
before
go away.
next October would be sweet.
All right, man. Take care.
Awesome, Lynn. Good talking to you.